Good day. Welcome to another edition of Ebimo Amungo's Perspective on Global Affairs, the X Review edition. X, as we all know, is now the largest news platform in the whole world. We have to say it's the whole world now, because even in some countries in the European Union, until recently, they were holding off, and then when they censored X just shot to the top. We should know that the European Union is doing its best to censure some of the news items on X. X is veritable source of news. Everybody has an X account. So as a geopolitical commentator, I do this review on the geopolitical news that comes into my news feed. And it is from here also, I lean very heavily on X to get some of the news, especially since I get to see both sides of the news on X, something you don't get to see in the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is very narrative driven and they won't give their opponents an opportunity to have their say. Anyway, without much ado, let us go in now and start today's edition of X. And what do I have in my news feed? What are the news? What's the news that is really thumping on my news feed? The first news I have here is Russia deploys submarine to it's a very interesting story. Something has been going on here now. There's a standoff going on between Russia and America. Russia has deployed a submarine and other Navy units into North Atlantic to protect tanker Marinera from a possible seizure by U.S. forces, according to Wall Street Journal. The tanker, previously known as Bella One, has been followed by the U.S. Coast Guard for the past 17 days since leaving the Venezuelan coast and has now reached waters near Iceland and the United Kingdom. This is an interesting standoff between Russia and America. Russia and America haven't had direct conflict somehow since the Trump administration. But the Trump administration had a very serious campaign against Venezuela. They blockaded the Venezuelan coast and they seized some ships. This particular ship, Bella One, was one of the ships that was sought after. America had already seized 3 ships, and then they set their eyes on Bella One when it was en route to Venezuela. It's empty though. And they accused the ship of being sanctioned, carrying Iranian oil and all. The ship made course, turned and run and fled. But the Coast Guard have been after them for a while now, and while they were on the run, they changed their ownership and made it a Russian flagship. And since then, the US have been very doggedly chasing it. They've sent assets to the UK, and then they are still continuing to chase it into the North Atlantic. Now the Russians have decided that they're going to take action. Yesterday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs put out a statement that they were actually watching what was going on here. So this is possibly shaping up to be a major direct confrontation between America and Russia, something we've not seen, because somehow, even though the Americans have been having support for the Ukrainians, they've not had a direct confrontation with the Russians, and this is shaping up to be one. Breaking news. The judge presiding over Netanyahu's corruption case was found dead. Judge Benny Sagai, president of the Beersheba District Court, was killed in a traffic accident on Route 6 on Sunday, January 4th. He was riding his motorcycle when he was struck by a vehicle that entered the highway from off-road area and collided with his bike. Paramedics from Magna David found him and with critical injuries, no signs, and pronounced him dead. Police have opened investigation into the circumstances of his crash. We should know that Prime Minister Netanyahu has been under siege for over 3 years now. He has had a corruption case that has sent his wife to prison for a while. And this particular judge here, unfortunately, was killed in a road accident. I think he was riding his motorcycle and a car came off the other side of the road and hit him. Further investigation, I've done some investigation, and in the reports I read earlier, they said that this is not particularly true. He's not directly affiliated with this case. He may be a critic of Netanyahu though. And because of all the goings on in Israel now, There may just be some form of a conspiracy theory about him, but he has been sent not to be directly involved. Netanyahu is really embattled. There's demonstrations going on now in Israel against Netanyahu, especially from the ultra-Orthodox strand of the society there. They don't want to be part of the military. Anyway, the United States reportedly preparing offered Greenland of free association deal similar to existing between Micronesia, Marshall Island, and Palau. Okay, under such an arrangement, Greenland could gain greater autonomy or independence from Denmark, while the US provides defense, economic support, and duty-free trade access in exchange for military basing rights and strategic influence in the Arctic. This comes amid renewed US interest in Greenland for national security reasons, including countering Russia and China in the region. Reports suggest that Trump administration is exploring options to negotiate directly with Greenland bypassing Denmark. This is the live issue of 2026. The early part of 2026. President Trump has had a very successful operation in Venezuela and instantly set his eyes on Greenland. Karolo Shevchenko is actually, we tend to hear him more from talking about his support for Ukraine. So there must be something something mischievous about this tweet. Anyway, what is clear is that the Trump administration officials, Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller, and all those ones who talk on behalf of Trump, who have a deeper insight into his thinking regarding Greenland, have said there are so many options on the table. They will probably pay off Denmark the way they bought the Louisiana purchase. That has been a preferred method of the Americans for a while. They probably also may decide also to, as this report says, offer them the compact of free association. This is now something that has pitted the European Union against the Trump administration. We also see that NATO countries are very confused because an attack on Greenland will possibly be that they will be forced to evoke the rights of Article 5 of NATO, and this may be a problem for America and its allies in Europe. Anyway, going on further now, I would have to go on further here now. We still have that same report here now about Russia has deployed a submarine to the naval assets in the North Atlantic in order to escort Guyana-flagged Iranian-linked sanctioned crude oil tanker Belawan, now Russian-flagged Marinera. So this is the report we just explored. We should know that Russia has a very formidable submarine fleet. The Kilo-class submarine is very silent, very deadly. And I guess it will be the Kilo-class submarine they will want to deploy for such an operation because it's within the territorial waters there. It's very suited for that kind of operation. The Wall Street Journal has ratcheted it up. We will think that America would, the Russians will take action because they will want to send a strong signal. But some people have said that this particular ship continues to have the call sign, the IMO call sign that gives it, links it to still being Guyana registered. So it's not yet recognized as Russian registered. This is going to be a diplomatic standoff that we're going to watch. Meanwhile, NATO jets, it's interesting. It's getting really interesting. What do we have here? They say breaking. NATO jets swarm UK skies with US Poseidon hunt Russian submarines escorting sanctioned tanker in Atlantic standoff. Multiple PS-8 Poseidon and RAF Eurofighter Typhoons, Voyager tankers, and a surge in US military aircraft have been tracked launching from UK bases and Iceland, conducting patrol in relevant Atlantic sectors. This operation involves surveillance of the tanker and likely anti-submarine search in response to the reported Russian submarine presence. I can tell you this, if it's the Kilo-class submarine, they're not going to see it. That is actually called, that submarine is such a formidable weapon that it is actually called the black hole. It could just be there and they will not even see it. It's one of Russia's one of their most innovative products. It is a diesel electric submarine. It is not yet. It is not a nuclear submarine, and it has to snorkel after 45 days. But 45 days, this standoff won't last that long. So this is it. If I'm to hazard a guess, I think ultimately the Americans will pull back from this. Trump wags his finger, no China, no Russia. 75 only wants partners with Venezuela on oil deal. Yes, this is another report again. We get this report so much now. There's a lot of talk about what possibly is going on in Trump's head regarding Venezuela, regarding Russia, regarding Ukraine, and it has left a lot. There's a feast of speculation going on in the media all over the world now. This feast of speculation is just about how what everybody thinks about what Trump may be thinking and doing. But regarding Venezuela, they are now stating categorically that Venezuela, President Trump has stated that he doesn't want Venezuela to trade with Russia and other partners like China. Anyway, it turns out also now that on the day that Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as the interim president of Venezuela, the first thing she did was that she hugged, very symbolically, the ambassadors of China, the ambassadors of Russia, and then they're also the ambassador of Iran. She has stated through that particular show of support and show of empathy or emotion with them that possibly these are our partners. They are going to be with her. There's something interesting too. I should point out that China and Russia have said they are going to continue to support Venezuela. I guess what happened with Iran possibly will happen with Venezuela now. They will redouble, and there's also a report now. I should state that a whole suite of Chinese and BRIC associated ships are on their way to Venezuela to break the blockade. They have Brazil, they have ships from Brazil, Mexico, Russia, and China in that tankers in that blockade going off to try to break that blockade that Trump has placed against Venezuela. Anyway, that is the story. We will continue to get more news about it. We have another news here that says that Iranian intelligence forces are deploying quadcopters to monitor protests and identify rioters. There's something very serious going on now in Iran. Demonstrations against increase or let us say fall in the value of the currency has now been hijacked by some rioters. Some people, peaceful demonstrations at first, but it has become an opportunity for some actors to start to shoot into the crowd, loot and all. And at a very sensitive time now when Iran is facing the possibility of an attack by both America and Israel, they are cracking down on rioters, and they are now using this to deploy. They are distinguishing very categorically that there's a difference between rioters and demonstrators. Unfortunately for me, here now I have one terrorist terrorizing me, and that's a fly that somehow has gotten into my studio. Anyway, let's go on. We all live with this hazard called flies. Anyway, this is a visual again, breaking. Somebody has decided to show us one of those formidable submarines. I think this is the Akula class. This is the nuclear submarine, the very big Akula class submarine. This definitely is not the asset that the Russians will be using to try and interdict this action by NATO. Anyway, Russia has dispatched submarine and additional naval assets to escort runaway Bella 1 after it fled Venezuelan waters. The tanker previously sanctioned and chased. We've seen all this before, but this year now is one of the most formidable assets that the Russians have, and this is the Akula class submarine. Very big. It's one of the biggest submarine classes in the world. Yeah, the Russians chose to invest heavily more on submarines against having aircraft carriers. They were never good with the aircraft carriers and competencies, so they chose submarines and all. Here we have Delcy Rodrigo. US is no longer the top economy, China is. That is actually the truth. She says acting President Delcy Rodrigo told reporters Venezuela had always been open to sell oil to USA, but Trump had demanded it for free. Trump has said that America is going to get 30 to 50 million supply of oil from Venezuela. And she said, pointing out here in this interview, obviously, that Trump wanted the oil completely for free. He demanded all the oil of Venezuela, and he wasn't compromising about it. Let's hear, listen.
¿Y qué dijo su máxima autoridad cuando le preguntaron qué van a hacer con ese petróleo? Quedárnoslo. Tanto que hablan del tren de Aragua y se comportan como el tren de Aragua.
Well, she has her hands full. Trump has told her that if she should play ball, she should cooperate. If not, he will visit her with a fate worse than that of Maduro. One thing we should know, though, she may not be looked at as an ally of Maduro, but she doesn't have any legal issues with America here now. And it's very surprising that President Trump actually chose to work with her. He has said that he's going to work with her. And rather than Maria Machido, Corina Machido, he chose not to work with her. He said that she's not popular, she's not respected in Venezuela. That's the opposition leader who won the Nobel Peace Prize or who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. But he has chosen to work with Delcy Rodriguez there, and we'll be seeing how this is going. Breaking, Iran has taken over an entire city, driving out the Islamic Republic. So this is demonstrations that is going on. I think this is in the very west of Iran. These demonstrators have overrun one small city in the western part of Iran. I think the Iranian military is deploying to that city. And I think they were overwhelmed. The police decided to not be part of this. They were overwhelmed by the demonstrations. Iran, I should point out, has some internal issues and internal problems. They have tribes, they have ethnicities, they have religious cleavages, and sometimes demonstrations like this are exploited by every single strand or group that opposes the government in the center. Anyway, let's move on now. This year is a new problem for America, and his name is his internal minister of Venezuela. He talked tough. He gathered the people of Venezuela after the abduction of Maduro, and he told them that they should be calm. They should not worry. I think it is the stability brought about by people like this, the Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello, that made the administration to continue as if without missing a step after the operation to remove Maduro. The U.S. has threatened Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello that he is going to be targeted if Venezuela does not meet U.S. demands. Reuters. The Trump administration has put Venezuela hardline Interior Minister on notice that he could be at the top of its target list unless he helps Interim President Delcy Rodriguez meet U.S. demands. Well, like I said, there's a lot of flux regarding Venezuela, and we'll get all these strands of information from different media organizations. Wall Street Journal is saying theirs, and then we also see now that Reuters is saying theirs. Everybody will be saying what they want to say for now, but there's clarity. One thing is very sure. The Trump administration may have removed Maduro, but they did not change the administration. You don't get to see this often, but this is the demonstration against Netanyahu I was talking about. Civil war about to erupt in Israel against chosen and non-chosen people of Israel. Who is this guy? He says, daily breaking news, stock market, geopolitics, crypto, technology, finance, investing. Okay, so so obviously he's talking about the demonstrations that are going on in Israel. And there's a lot of demonstration going on in Israel. The reason being that some of them don't want to join the military. The ultra-Orthodox church members of Israel don't want to join the military, and they're having this demonstration, and this is causing a lot of problems to the Israeli government as at now. Back again to that old story, we'll skip it this time around. And then let's go now to the Houthis. The Houthis in Yemen say breaking. Houthi spokesman speaks to voice Yemen radio station and threatened to the breakaway Somaliland. Yahya said the Ansarallah movement is closely following the enemy's plans in northern Somalia, where it is known as Somaliland. We want our brothers to abandon this plan, otherwise, otherwise we will have to defend ourselves from the invasion. We will use our most powerful missiles. Yahya argued that Israel's presence in Somaliland is a threat to its security and existence, and threatened President Iro with rebuke, calling him a Jewish worker who wants to buy his country. Somaliland was prosperous and peaceful for 35 years. Well, this is a very serious issue now. Israel recognized Somaliland, but it is just not the recognition alone. He recognized Somaliland for its clear intent. It wants to have a presence in Somaliland. Somaliland is still supposed to be at least recognized internationally as an integral part of Somalia. They broke away since 1991. They have insisted that they are independent, but they are recognized as an integral part of Somalia. And this recognition by Israel has given them a foothold. They want a foothold in the Horn of Africa there. And what has happened is that even yesterday, the foreign minister of Israel went to visit Somaliland. He was in Somaliland, and Somalia has promptly put out a statement saying that this is an invasion of their country. It is against their sovereignty. They have said very strong words about this visit, but the Israelis have access to Somaliland from Ethiopia. They don't have to come through Somalia, and they have been going through. So the foreign minister was in Hagasa. Now the Yemenis are directly opposite the other side of the Red Sea, and they are saying that they're going to not allow the entrenchment of the Israelis in the form of putting military assets in Somaliland. So we're watching this space, and it's interesting going forward. Again, that same story about that same story about the carrier, the Russian submarine that is now following that Minera ship, the super tanker. This is a standoff that may blow out. Russian forces enter Kurolovko in East Kupiansk. Armored assault vehicles were used to advance 3 kilometers, where they took up positions in populated areas. Well, this is very interesting about Kupiansk. The Russians are having a good time in eastern part of Kupiansk. They are moving in and occupying territory in the eastern part of Kupiansk. But in the western part of Kupiansk, they are having a trashing there because the Ukrainians are doing very well in the western part of Kupiansk. This forward and backward movement in Kupiansk, trying to get back and win back the city by the Ukrainians, is intensifying. But the Russians are entrenching themselves. You will get a sense that the Russians are making some plans to lure the Ukrainians in and finally make a decisive action. President Putin has told the Russian military that they need to deal with this Kupiansk situation very decisively. He said that to them recently. We will move on to the next story here now. Elon Musk posted, or is responding to a story. I thought the view was surreal. But I looked twice and found out that it was just Satya Nadella and McAndressen. So it was a concert, and obviously you must be responding to this particular picture here. Yes, you need to take a good look at it before you see. You will think that it is something else. Okay, let's move on. The countdown has begun for the Iranian attack on Israel. Iran has been very assertive. Iran has said that if Israel dares to amass troops, if they get the inkling or the sense that Israel and America is trying to attack them again, that they will take preemptive strike against Israel. We don't get to hear opponents of Israel claims threatening preemptive strike. Normally, it is Israel that carries out preemptive strike, but Iran has learned from the 12-day war. And Iran is saying that they are planning their own preemptive strike, and they are putting out their missiles. They are showing us what weapons they have and all. The countdown has begun for the Iranian attack on Israel. Iranian officials have confirmed all planning, determination of targets, and notification of regional countries regarding an imminent attack on Israel. This video was released by the Iranian military sector. Indeed, it's formidable. The Iranians have formidable hypersonic missiles. Their missile system is very high, and I should point out they also have a space program, so that will also mean that they're very competent in that particular regard. Anyway, Greenland, critical minerals of Greenland. This is possibly why they want Greenland. It's AFP infographics with a map showing the main deposits of selected critical minerals in Greenland according to the Geological Survey of Greenland and Denmark. We have feldspar, graphite, molybdenum, platinum group metals, rare earth metals, titanium, and vanadium. Yes, these metals are all there in Greenland, but one of the things they find out as a big problem for Greenland is that it's very difficult to try and access them and extract them and refine them. So it's not just to have them, but the processing, the extraction of these minerals is almost near impossible now with the resources that are available to Denmark. Maybe if it was in China, the Chinese would have found a way and been extracting it because they have that world-beating competence regarding extraction of such minerals, but not the people of Denmark. They don't have the resources, the money. Maybe America also may be able to do that. Maybe. We never know. America is very desperate for rare earth metals since China shut them off of it. China is doing very well in Africa. Very well. This is Chinese investment in Africa. They tend to invest in ports, every single thing that will facilitate logistics, because they are the world's leading trading partner with 128 countries now. And for that reason, they have an interest in building ports, and they use the instrument of the Belt and Road Initiative, initiated in 2011, but now very much an integral part of the Chinese international diplomacy, both in diplomacy because they build infrastructure. And we can see the kind of infrastructure they have put out all across Africa here. This facilitates their trade, no doubt, but it also brings economic development to these countries. It is a very different model from the one done by colonial overlords of these countries who tended to just build ports or build rail lines to those points that were of interest to them that facilitates the export of the goods that they were extracting from these African countries. In the case of Nigeria, then it used to be tin. Tin was the main thing that brought them to Jos and brought them from Jos to the Lagos port, the Port Harcourt port. It also used to be palm oil. Then Tanzania also. So Chinese involvement in Africa is very, very extensive. This is a very good map that illustrates the points of engagement. Investment into Africa here now from the Belt and Road Initiative we can't even conjecture the figures. The figures we really don't have. I don't have at this point the exact figures that may have been invested, but it is very much in the billions of dollars. It is very welcome by the African countries, I can tell you that, because they cannot get funding from European funders. Europe, we should know, and America, the financial sector is much private-driven, and their motive is profit, and they have means of appraising investment. These days also, because of sovereign risk, they've put sovereign risk, marked African sovereign risks very high. Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and Moody's have very high ratings for African debt. So they choose not to give Africans this country because they feel there is a debt risk. But for other strategic regions, the Chinese, and I actually have a book I was working on called The Flow of Capital into Africa. And this yearly illustrates that this flow of capital is coming off of China and UAE, coming off of Turkey, coming off of the investments of Saudi Arabia and not Western countries anymore as it used to be in the past. Anyway, let's move on from that story and go. This is still, again, that story we'd already talked about. Israel UAE influence in Africa has risen like crazy this past 5 years. They literally have influence on 50 countries. This is just what I was just talking about now. So Israel is building bridges across Africa. They have competencies in agriculture, and they also have drones, security. They are very good in security, so they maybe investing. UAE too has been investing. UAE have the DP ports, and they have been investing in port infrastructure. UAE also had one investment in Nigeria. They have a vehicle by which they invest in telecommunications. That was how they got Zain into very many parts of Africa. And Mudubela is their investment vehicle, and they invested quite a lot. But I think Zain has pulled out of Africa now. They really are not. They really didn't understand the Africa marketplace, and they chose to leave. At least they left Nigeria though. Yes, so they probably have left. I don't know what investments they may have. They may have more investments in north of Africa where they have cultural affiliations. They are much closer. They tend to have some more understanding of those economies than in the west and central parts of Africa and the sub-Saharan Africa. Let me move on to other stories. This is also the demonstration going on now in Israel. It is one that is worrying the Israelis. Benjamin Netanyahu is really worried about this. He has had this issue about legal status, about so many things. These demonstrations have been going on for a long time now, and now it's threatening his government. Breaking: Russia has sent a submarine and all that. We've done this extensively. Anti-government protests in Iran, we've done this already. And then now, finally, we probably will well, let's talk about what Donald Trump is saying here now. He put out a tweet and he said, this is a tweet, let us read it. He said, "I am pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America. To ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States, I have asked Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute this plan immediately. It will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks in the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter." We will continue to watch this space. The pressure that President Trump is putting on Venezuela, we will see ultimately what he wants and what he gets out of it. But at least he has managed to get Maduro out of it. Maduro had always been a big adversary that he wanted. And he said, in fact, he was talking the other day at the Trump Lincoln Center when he was addressing Republicans. He said that one of the things that made him very unhappy about Maduro was that Maduro was copying his dance steps. Maduro used to have these very big concerts and rallies, and he will dance, he will call for peace, and he will dance. And I think that got Trump angry, and he initiated that operation. We should find out that, I should point out also that operation was a big risk to the Trump presidency, because if he had failed in it, if some of those helicopters and those Delta Force soldiers had been killed, it may not be what we are talking about now. That would have signaled the end of the Trump administration. He did put his administration online there. Let us be frank about that one. Ukraine is about to be sold off. Steve Witkoff says they are close to finishing a prosperity agreement with Ukraine. Yes, I put this in my main video yesterday. Steve Witkoff says that BlackRock is ready to go into Ukraine and invest in Ukraine after the ceasefire is signed with the Russians. I will hazard not to press the video. I would have liked to show it again, but some of these videos, especially from legacy media like Sky News, they have copyright protection, and if you do that, you may just have the whole video, your whole show demonetized. Vladimir Putin extended his congratulations to all of Russian people on Orthodox Christmas holiday. Yes, it's Christmas holiday now for the people in the eastern part of, the Christians in the eastern part of the world, from Greece, from Turkey, from all those countries that were part of the Orthodox church, Christian church, and it's Christmas for them. And the President Putin chose to be with the military. He had a big, extensive celebration with the Russian military. So this is TASS. Yeah, TASS is a news agency of Russia. This is why X is very unique. The news agency of Russia can be on X. The news agency of America, every single person can put their voice. So we don't just get to have just one strand of information. We get both sides. So Vladimir Putin has extended his congratulations to all Russian people on the Orthodox Christmas holiday, the Kremlin press office has said in a statement. Yeah, maybe I should just do one or two more stories, then we can call it a day. The big news, many Iranian Arab sources report that the United States is preparing to launch a large-scale airstrike against Iran, and in which Israel will also take part. At the same time, Iran fears that such strike may lead to the collapse of its air defense system. And for this reason, it is considering the need for preemptive strike against U.S. bases deployed against. This report about preemptive strike, I think, will not fly, because one thing is very clear. Iran will not want to give America justification to put overwhelming pressure on them. They will not want to, first of all, poke America. America has extensive resources. And even though America may not have the kind of support they used to have in the Middle East now because of its affiliations and ties with Israel, it can still marshal out a lot. We should know that they have their big base in Bahrain. They have their big base in Saudi Arabia, and in the Prince Sultan in Saudi Arabia, and also, of course, the largest bases. So this talk of preemptive strike may just not happen as they are putting it out there. It just is that the Iranians are posturing and showing that they are going to do something about it. 57% of Europe's LNG imports now come from the United States. Yes, they chose to wean themselves off of Russian oil, and for that reason, they are now very dependent on the United States, and 57% of all their oil. Finland, it's very ironic that Finland is just a neighbor of Russia right next door, and they're now buying oil from the United States. Just the transportation cost of it alone, if we know it's so far off, it just doesn't make economic sense. But this is what geopolitics is leading us into. The hatred of your neighbor has meant that you buy oil from somewhere several thousand miles away. So now Finland has 92% dependency. France has 49% dependency, and Spain 45% dependency. I wonder where this data is coming off of. Okay, ICIS, whatever that means, I really don't understand it. I don't know the full meaning of that acronym, but I guess it's an industry researcher or think tank, and we have any. But indeed, most of these countries now depend on America. Because America has told them that they should stop buying this thing. This is the last story here now. I will stop here now. It also has to do with the coalition of the willing meeting that had happened yesterday. Zelensky had a meeting in Paris with Macron and 28 other leaders and country representatives from ministerial representatives from some other countries and ambassadors, and it was all under the framework of the coalition of the willing. And this is what happened. How did they frame it? Zelensky, the document are essentially ready following the signing of declaration. The next step in this ratification of these security guarantees by the parliament of each participating country, including the US Congress.
Конгресом, дай Бог, щоб ми дійшли до цього моменту. Ми
на це
розраховуємо, документи, в принципі, готові, про деталі поки що
no doubt, but that's why Macron is looking very confused. The guarantees of the coalition of the willing must work together with the guarantees of the United States of America, and that's exactly how
сам
it will
процес,
be.
і
We are
ці
working to ensure these are legally
юридично
binding
також
guarantees regarding the
ці
American
документи
side.
будуть
Our
юридично
bilateral
зобов'язуючі.
security guarantees will be supported by
Більшості
Congress.
країн із
God
коаліції
willing,
охочих потрібна
that we reach this
підтримка
point. We are
їх
counting on it. The documents are
парламентів.
essentially ready.
Тому
I
після
can't discuss the details
декларації,
here.
після цього
Yes, he
процесу
has always said
країни
that he
йдуть
wants
в
American
парламент.
backstop.
Також
The
розраховуємо
security
на це.
guarantees will be given by the Europeans, but he wants American backstop to it. The Americans say that they are going to give that backstop, and they're going to pass it through Congress, and they will now assure that in case there's ceasefire, there's a point here, a caveat we should always remember that there should be ceasefire before this coalition of the willing will be willing to take part. Will take part in this thing, in this process. But if you ask me, the Americans will stall and stall and stall. That process is never going to happen because, like I've always said, and I will restate, President Trump is not sold on the Ukrainian project. Anyway, this is where I'll end this video for today. If you're new to my show, please subscribe. If you have any views regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. I do have to apologize for that fly that was terrorizing me during this video. Until my next video, please, you have a good day.